There's been some fuss on the interwebs lately because a lifelong Harley guy made a video trashing a competing brand. Now, I've never really been one to do that. I love Harleys. I don't really care for other brands. Don't have anything against them. Some of them I think are somewhat obnoxious, but that's just my personal opinion. And I just keep that to myself for the most part. But that's not what this video is about. How did I become a Harley fanboy? Well, it goes all the way back to my childhood. Where else? I had an uncle, my Uncle John. And I was a pretty small kid, probably about 6 years old, 5 or 6, when he joined the Air Force. And he was just one of those people in your life that made me feel older, important. You know, you ever have somebody like that in your life when you're a little kid? They treat you like you're special. They make you feel like you're older than you are. That type of thing. That was how my Uncle John treated me when I was little. And when he was in the Air Force, he was stationed in Greece for a while. He would write to me, and I would write back, and that was really cool. I'd go to school and, you know, tell people I had an uncle that was in the Air Force and where he was and everything. So eventually the time came for him to come home, and I guess by this time, it was probably around 10 or 11, somewhere around there. I used to spend a lot of time at my grandparents', which would be my uncle's parents. So I'm at my grandparents' and out in the driveway, probably riding around on my bike or something. They had a nice big driveway. And here comes a big commercial truck in the driveway. I think there might have even been 2 trucks. And they start unloading these wooden boxes. And they unloaded a lot of them. I might be exaggerating, but it seemed like there were 20 of these boxes. And I said to my grandfather, "What is this stuff?" He said, it's Johnny's. So when I saw my Uncle John, I think he was already home. The boxes came after he did. I asked him, what's in these boxes? And he said, "It's a motorcycle." Now, he probably had some personal things, clothing and stuff like that too, but most of the boxes, I guess, had motorcycle parts, and I thought he was crazy. So he unpacks these boxes, and it's piece by piece an old motorcycle, and I could tell just by looking at the pieces that when this thing was assembled, it wasn't a real looker. You know, it looked pretty beat up, and it had a couple different colors of paint going or something. It just looked like an old beater, and I think he actually did find it in a junkyard or something like that. I don't remember the details. I was pretty little, like I said, but he spent the next, well, all through that summer, I don't know exactly how long it took, detailing and rebuilding this bike piece by piece. And he had the frame painted and the tins painted. And when he got all done, this was the coolest motorcycle I'd ever seen. Now, I was somewhat familiar with motorcycles, even though I was pretty young. Me and my brothers had a little Honda Mini Trail, Honda 50, at our summer place up in the Pocono Mountains. And a couple of my brothers, one of them had a Yamaha. My dad had a Yamaha dirt bike of some sort. And I think another brother had a Honda. And we had friends that were up there that had bikes. I remember somebody had a Suzuki, and those are the brands that I remember at the time. And my Uncle John had a Honda 750, which was the biggest motorcycle I knew of. I think the next closest thing somebody had was a 350, which, you know, the 750 was big back then to me. So anyway, when he gets his new rebuilt bike all together, I'm looking at it and it says on the side of the tank, Harley Davidson. And I never heard of that before. But this bike immediately, in my mind, blew away any other bike I'd ever seen in my life. It had a Springer seat. I think the clutch was actually down on the left foot peg area because the shifter was on the fuel tank. And if memory serves, when I asked him about this bike a few years ago, I believe it's a 68 Panhead. Don't quote me, but I think that's what it was. And he painted it a grayish color, glossy finish, and it was just an eye popper, man. I never saw anything like it. So from that moment, this Harley Davidson was now a thing in my brain. And I actually remember thinking to myself, if I ever get a motorcycle, which I definitely wanted to do, you know, when I grew up, it would be a Harley Davidson. So my uncle, I don't know how much riding he did on that thing. I think it was a lot. He still has the bike. My understanding is it is resting comfortably in a basement with a cover over it. I've been trying to get a picture of it. Haven't yet. I really want to see this thing and see if my memory matches what it actually looks like. So, fast forward some time. Now I am a grown-up. Still don't have a motorcycle. I started a job in my late 20s, and my boss, we'll call him Bob, because that was his name. Bob was into bikes, and he had a sport bike, but he also had a Harley. Now, unfortunately, I don't remember what model he had. I was not into bikes at that point. At that point in my life, I was married with a child, and I just felt like the dream of owning a motorcycle was something I just had to let go, because number one, I didn't have the funds, and I had a family to take care of, so didn't feel the need or the desire. But again, you know, seeing Bob's bike, I just had that awe of Harley Davidson, and by now I had seen them on the road, and you know, I knew what Harley was, and I knew some people here and there that were enthusiasts. And then moving ahead further in time to the late 2000s, like maybe 08, something like that, my wife and I spent the day with friends of ours, Frank and Marianne. And Frank had a Harley. And when we were out gallivanting around, we ended up near the Harley dealer in Honesdale, PA. So, hey, we're going in. So we went in, and I was into digital cameras back then, kind of a newer thing back then, and I was taking pictures of all these bikes. And there are some real beauties there. And again, you know, just kind of like different moments in life where I kept finding myself face to face with Harleys. And even then, you know, I didn't really entertain the idea that I would have a bike, but there was still that thought. If I ever did, it would be a Harley. And so lo and behold, moving ahead again in time, when I was at a point where I was starting to think about it, I actually was browsing through all those pictures I took at the Harley dealer that day, just looking at the bikes, and something in my brain said, if I was going to do this, how would I do it? How do you go about it? So there you go. Next thing I knew, I was looking at different model bikes, and trying to understand the different categories of bikes, and I was looking at how you get a license and a learner's permit, all that stuff. Harley was the only brand I even considered. I didn't look at anybody else's website. I didn't look at any other used bikes. There was no question. So I guess that makes me a fanboy, you know? And so I'm now on my second Harley. Started with a Sportster 1200 XL Custom, my first bike, and now I have a Dyna Low Rider. This bike's got to hold me for a while, but if the time comes where I need another bike, it's gonna be a Harley. Now, there might be, and probably, well, let me back up. There are other bikes that are faster, that are cheaper, that have more tech for a lower price. I mean, I can go on and on with what's out there, but I don't want that. I want a Harley. And I think that, as I explained, you know, goes back to the youth. There's something about certain brands that appeal to people. Not everybody, but it definitely works that way on me. So I'm not going to bash other bikes. I'm happy other people like them. And I recognize that competition's a good thing. If other manufacturers do things that causes Harley to feel like, uh-oh, you know, we're missing this, we got to get on this, we got to add this technology or whatever, or pass it, you know, to stay ahead or whatever, good. You know, that's business. And it is a business. For Harley, the company, it's all a business. But it's not a business for me. I'm a rider. And for me, it's just something that I love. And I guess its roots go all the way back to when I was single digits age. And that's a powerful thing. And I guess that's something that companies try to do. And when they get somebody like me, hook, line, and sinker, good for them. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. It is November 5th. It's probably in the low 50s, and the temperature drops quick once that sun goes down at this time of year. So I'm not cold right now, but I got about 45 minutes to go, and I might be a little frozenated before I get home. So I'm not sure how many more ride days to work there'll be. There might be one or two more if you get one of them freaky days where it's just mild and dry. Otherwise, it just might be some short rides on a weekend here or there. And then the long haul begins. Once the white stuff, and by white stuff, not only do I mean snow, but also salt. That pretty much destroys the ride experience. until next spring. Anyway, thanks for watching. I do have a couple more vlogs that will show up that I made but haven't finished yet. So, a couple things coming, but it's gonna be then a little barren till next year. Till next time, guys.